New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Welcome to Ministers Talking a weekly program where Rev BRZ and Rev Z and their guests chat about current affairs, world events, spiritual principles, and any old they want to talk about. Based on the New Thought philosophy and ancient wisdoms, Ministers Talking shares a visionary perspective of the evolving spiral called spiritual living. Join us each week as we explore the emerging paradigm of life on planet Earth and beyond.
And good morning, dear ones. Rev BRZ with you over here.
Rev Z right here.
And this is Ministers Talking Shit. Happens every Friday morning, 7 a.m. on the Mountain Time Zone, where we get a chance to come together and, well, like the video says, talk about whatever we want to talk about. So today, however, we do want to get kicked off and started with a prayer raising up and a prayer for peace and health for former President Bill Clinton. Did not know that he was admitted to the hospital earlier this week with what they're saying is some COVID-related experiences. We're not really sure exactly, but doctors say he's on the mend, and so we raise up a prayer of health for him and a prayer for peace for him and his family as well. Morning, Z. How you doing, bro?
Oh, doing well, man. Doing well. You know, getting into this changing weather thing going on over here in Colorado and across the country. It's freezing today, and by Sunday it's going to be back in the 70s. So,
yes,
schizophrenic weather.
And yes, folks, all across the country this weekend, you'll be hearing stories about skiing in Colorado and the fact that we had one ski area that's opening this weekend. Do not come visit. Don't come ski it. It won't be good. It'll just be some people messing around. Anyway, one of our other stories we want to bring to you, there's a feeling, Z, we were talking before the show, all is right in the universe when Captain Kirk is in space. And if you haven't heard, folks,
yes.
William Shatner took a flight on Blue Origin yesterday. And Z, you were telling me you watched it live?
Yeah, I watched it, and it was for me, it's always dramatic because I used to work in the space industry. I worked on space shuttle first 4 launchings, and so when I see these things go up, it's amazing to me to look at the nuances of it, knowing what it takes. And he came down; he was overwhelmed. And what was key to me is that this dude's 90 years old, and so to me, it was like, wow. I understand what it takes to get up and come down, and for a 90-year-old body to do that and come down, it was pretty amazing to me.
Yeah. Yes. So all is well in the universe, folks. It's all good. And here's how good it is. It's so good. We're rooting the world, life, spirit is rooting the cancer. We've used that term specifically here this morning, out of pro football here in the United States. So this is the story we really want to dig into today, folks, right? Here is, in my opinion, here is where we need a new thought perspective. Here is where I believe new thought can be part of the healing that's absolutely necessary to what's going on. So Z, fill everybody in just a little bit on the breaking news in the you're our sports commentator, so share with everybody what's going on.
Sure. So I'm sure everyone has heard it by now, and it's really buzzing here in Denver because the Las Vegas Raiders are coming into town this weekend to play the Denver Broncos. And so earlier this week, or at the end of last week, some emails came out that Gruden had made fun of the NFL rep, who was the lawyer and player representatives, made a comment that his lips were like Michelin tires. And then he came forth about it and said, okay, well, no, that was, many years ago, because it happened, I think, in 2010, 2011. But he said, I'm not a racist. And, he kind of tried to play it off. And then a couple of days later, some other emails erupted where he made fun of the commissioner, and they have some misogynistic photos that he exchanged with one of I think it was the owner of the Washington football team, and made some homophobic statements. And at that time, the whole house of cards just fell down, because he, as opposed to trying to just own up to it and get out in front of it, he denied it. And somebody just said, okay, well, here we go. Let's just dump the dump truck. And it's unfortunate for everybody, especially for him, because he just built a $4.5 million house in Las Vegas. And now, but that's another story. The real story is when we look at the system of sports in general, NFL specifically, which is about, 70-75% black.
Right.
For the leaders of the teams and the owners of the teams that have these kind of ideas about its players, its representatives, it just continues to speak to the privilege of the owners and the coaches and anyone that's involved in the management of this league, and how the institutional racism, if we can go there, is embedded in all systems in this country, even the entertainment. And so we have a continued reminder that, hey, as a country, as a people, we have to begin to figure this out. And how do we, it's not going to happen overnight. We know that, but there has to be some long-term, continual efforts to fix these problems, or else we're going to be doomed.
Right. When I look at the NFL, I found this analogy early this morning as well. Rome wasn't built in a day, and Rome didn't burn in a day. And the NFL appears to be doing a slow burn. And I want to remind everybody, we're talking about communications between a head coach at the Raiders and the owner of what is now WFT, the Washington football team. But that's very, very new for most people, because up until a year ago, they were still the Washington, quote, Redskins, and that organization was still dragging its heels about changing its name, and really only ever changed its name because people stood up and demanded it and did it. I would say the owner probably still feels a little under duress. I would say the owner might still describe that name change as being under duress. So the culture, and here's where I come back to, the culture of the NFL is damaged, is outdated, is no longer necessary, is no longer beneficial. It's got to go. The existing predominance of white superiority, and it's still, again, just if he had said, you know what, I'm mucked up bad, and I'm going to make changes, and here's what we're going to do, and I've got a plan, and I'm going to hand the team off for 6 weeks, and I'm going to go put myself in rehab for this, and there's a whole nother story that emerges. But what we continue to see in the NFL is old white guys digging in their heels saying, I ain't wrong. That wasn't wrong of me. That wasn't. And how do we change that part is the big question. I'm old enough to remember back in the day when the statement was made publicly that black quarterbacks can't think, and they were not, that wasn't a position that they could play.
and I'll leave the coach nameless who said that. And for those who want to figure it out, they can go Google it. But that was an actual statement. And when you look at the league now, when you look at the God, my just slipped my mind there. The guys, it's funny. The guys at Arizona, the guys in Philadelphia, he's having a little problem. Jalen Hurts from last night, they lost. But when you look at all of the quarterbacks that have come in, and when you go now and look at college quarterback, there are tons of black quarterbacks because that was supposed to be the most intelligent position on the field. And of course, blacks couldn't do that. And so that has changed in terms of playing the positions, but the attitudes seem to be very similar in how they respect and treat and deal with black athletes and black quarterbacks across the league.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's interesting. As we're sharing this, I was reminded of when I grew up. So you're just we'll say you're just a few more years in wisdom than I am, Z. And but we had that movie Semi-Tough, the movie Semi-Tough. Chris Christopherson and Burt Reynolds, I forget who else, right? And it glorified the excess of being a professional athlete, of being a professional football star. Mm-hmm. It glorified all of the problems we're talking about. Sexism, the misogyny, homophobia, all these things, the racism, it glorified all of that. But that was the culture. That was what we were, right? That's what we were taught as kids. Mm-hmm. You know, comedy mocks the truth, but it's not far mm-hmm. from the truth. What we've learned, what I've learned over my lifetime since then is, yeah, there was that, but we also have real problems with excessive concussions leading to brain damage and PTSD and all the a little bit of misogyny can go a long way in the hand of somebody whose brain is deteriorating and has unlimited money and unlimited access to weapons. And so we end up with a domestic violence problem within the NFL. Mm-hmm. And all of these things, we didn't need to get here. We didn't need to get here if we had not glorified some of these things, if we had dealt with some of these issues at the level of cause, rather than continuing to gloss it over, kick it down the can and pretend it didn't exist. And I'm
exactly.
When as a kid, I liked football.
And that's yeah. Well, you know, I mean, all kids like some form of football, whether they modified it or not, but because it was doing when we growing up, it's fun. It's a way to play. You get exercise. You can begin to develop who you are in some ways. But when it becomes a money-making scheme, you start walking a thin line, because of course all sports in some ways have been called modern day slavery, high price slavery, but slavery nonetheless. I mean, you could just look to the and this is just an example, and I'm not siding with any part of it. You look at the whole Kyrie Irving situation going on in basketball up in New York, where they're telling him, you know, if you don't get the shot, you can't play. You can't come to the facility. Now that's a double-edged sword. I get it.
And for him, that's that's $600,000 a game, or something like that.
Yeah, 300 and something a game. $385,000 a game for every game he missed.
Okay,
based on his salary.
So like, yeah, it would be very tough to call that man a slave. But then again, he's got somebody basically standing on his neck saying, "You do this, or I'm taking away your livelihood."
Yeah.
And if he hasn't been smart enough to save his money and invest his money, it could be a real problem for the man.
Yeah.
Folks, if you're just joining us, it's Friday morning. It's Ministers Talking Shit, and we're let's say, eyeball deep in these. Now, I haven't read them in the email revelations that have come forward around it's John Gruden, right? The head coach of the Raiders team and his communications with the owners of the Washington football team. And what this points to, Z, is it's got to be everywhere. It doesn't just stop with two guys. So we know it's everywhere. What I believe it is time for really is it might be time for a good deep cleaning, and we might need to burn the fields a little. And for every so often, farmers light their fields on fire to burn what's there and re-nourish, reinvigorate the soil. I'm sure. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Well, I was going to say, I wanted to just pick up on that one point you made. It's a small club. There's a few people that have the money and power. Even when you get the conglomerates to go in and buy a team, that's a small community of football. And we're just looking at football. Football team owners, there's a small community of football head coaches. So we know these guys are in communication. They talk, they hang out together. They share drinks and meals. So we know that these ideas, now I'm not saying it's pervasive, but we definitely know that it's there because we know we also have some progressive owners and coaches who are serious. I mean, one would be the example of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. His whole coaching staff is black at the head levels, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, because he understands that, I need to be able to show what I know. I mean, these are the best guys that I can find on the field, and we're going to put them there regardless of color, orientation, or anything else.
Right. So there's a seed, and that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for those stories. Right. I think we've all known intuitively that there's a dark streak to the NFL, let's say, or I want to. Okay, I'm on a new crusade. I'm going off topic, folks. I'm going off reservation. He's got no idea what's coming. But
no.
I want to get rid of these black terms, like the black sheep of the family. In disc golf, we've got a thing called a black ace. If you throw your disc and it goes in the wrong basket, but it goes in a basket, that's a black ace, not real. I want to get rid of all these phrases in our vocabulary. And there's a few in my head that just I got to work on it. So that's my new crusade, folks. I want you joining me in this. Enough of using the black side of life to demote less than perfection or an alternative perfection that's not really perfection. I got to get rid of this. So anyway, where were we? Yeah.
No, that's good. I like that because, to be honest, I'll stay on that point for a minute. My son actually came to my wife and asked her once when he was a lot younger about this whole question about, he's in a pretty much all white environment and he's looking at himself. And, one thing in the African American community, you can have a kid from the same mother and father, and they could be completely two shades different. One could be very light, one can be very dark, and be full brothers and sisters or full brothers or whatever. And he had a question as to, am I bad because of my skin color? Because black was given and has been and continues to be given a bad term. So that I would join you on that crusade.
Yes. So it's the alternate sheep. I don't know. Help me find the term. If you know what a better, folks, if you're listening, what's a better term? What can I substitute here? Give me something to substitute, and I will, and we'll change that. And that's what it's going to. I believe that's what it's going to take in the NFL is one person at a time saying, you know what, I've had enough. I'm guilty. Like, we need a march of coaches and coordinators and everybody in the NFL to walk across that stage and say, I'm guilty too. I did it. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Let's oponopono the whole NFL, right? And get some good, clean energy. Because yes, there is a redeeming quality in making the sport safe, so that youth can enjoy it and be safe, so we don't have the concussion repercussions and all the health problems, but that we could and create a safe and healthy culture for young men and women and the young beings to come up in, and create maybe a new pastime, a new, great sport.
And that the key word you said there, I think for me, is culture. Because I have a grandson who's, his father played in the NFL, his brother played Division I football, and so now of course he wants to play. And when I look at, I've seen recently some examples of pee-wee coaches. Now my grandson is 8 years old, but I've seen some guys who are coaching 8, 9, 10-year-olds, putting them through some football drills that are deadly. That shouldn't even be allowed almost in the whole sport, let alone at an 8, 9-year-old, 10-year-old level, where they're just having kids stand up and kids just come and knock them down. Wow. No protection, no nothing. 2-on-1. I mean, we have to begin to look at this and begin to say, okay, it's a good sport. It's a fun sport. It helps develop all kinds of things, teamwork, self-development, self-respect. I mean, a whole bunch of things. We could go on and on, but we have to do it safely. We don't want to do it at the expense of an 8-year-old kid that's in 2nd grade or 3rd grade, depending on when their birthday falls. I mean, we have to begin to look at the whole system and figure out how to make it, as you said, better, safer, more enjoyable and less reckless.
Right. Yes. I think you just described. Yeah.
And one last thing, and having grown men trying to build their career off of 8-year-old kids.
Yeah, enough of that. But you just kind of struck on something that for me it is in many ways like an analogy for life. We're making it safer and more fun and making things more accessible and allowing ourselves to continue a journey that continues to evolve every aspect. So let's put this in the football question, right? The safety measures within football have evolved. Rules have evolved. You can't blindside people, right? Different hits, different things. And the players and they argue about, hey, what's this? At the end of the day, I don't think any of the players are really out there, unless they move a little. They're not really trying to hurt each other. They're just trying to get their job done. The rules evolved, the equipment evolved, but it doesn't appear like the culture evolved. And that's where we're at now. And that's what we're working on now. So we can call, again, changing my language, I stopped calling people out. We're not calling anybody out. We're calling them in. We're calling football into a greater understanding that all this stuff works together. That they're not just a thing. They're not just a cog in the greater wheel of society. They are integral to all of it. That every part of this is necessary. And they've got to clean up their stuff, just like all the other organizations, just like Hollywood is being called into a more holistic, systematic look of eliminating these things, just like politics is being called into letting go of these things. Football's getting its Me Too moment, I think.
Yeah. And I love a comment by Wayne. Wayne says, not hockey. And it's and it's great when we have this kind of interaction, because we begin to see that everything has its issues, right? And that's part of the growing process. You hear when kids start to grow, they start complaining to their parents, my knees hurt, my hips hurt, because the bones, joints, and growing. And we know that is a part of what has to happen for them to grow. And so I look at this in that banner, regardless of the sport, football, baseball, basketball. I remember a time when in baseball, after Jackie Robinson, there were a lot of blacks playing professional baseball. Now that trend has shifted more to Latinx and Hispanic players that are in the league playing. And so this whole thing in sports and that whole industry, if you will, it has to begin to get more equitable at the administrative levels. And some organizations and some sports are doing better than others in terms of trying to root out these past behaviors and ideologies that have made it that has given it some black eyes, let's say.
Right. Exactly. I'm still on the hockey thing. Sorry. And here's why. I'll own right up to it. Right? As soon as I heard that, my mind went, well, yeah, that's because black guys don't play hockey.
It's only been a few.
And then and so a quick wiki list shows about 100. A quick wiki search shows about 100 black players in the NFL over the NFL's history. Yes, that is dismal. But here's the deeper introspection, right? Is my mind went to, yeah, that's because black guys don't play hockey. And then my mind said, why is that? And what pops up is they have weak ankles. Now, these are not things I go around talking about in public, folks, right? These are not things that I write in my blog. But that's what we're asking everybody to do, to really look at, where do my beliefs come, trace those things back, right? Mm-hmm. Can that be true? Black men have weak ankles. Bullshit. That cannot be physiologically true. No. Do some? Yep. Yeah. Do some white guys have weak ankles? Yeah. Do we all have our own unique body? Yes. But that in no way precludes a black athlete from playing hockey or being successful in hockey, which means there must be something else going on there. So does hockey have a problem? Well, we don't know about it outright, but if I shake my magic, there it is again, my magic 8 ball. If I shake my magic ball, Oracle, there's a better than average chance there's a problem there, and we just don't know about it.
Yeah, well, and part of it is privilege for the things that they say blacks or African Americans are more suited for: track and field, football, basketball. These things take very little money to get involved. All I need is a good pair of shoes and a ball. If I start playing hockey, well, I got to get equipment. I got to get ice time. I got to get, some protective gear, which speaks to a level of financial privilege, if you will, or at least financial astuteness to be able to play that game. To run track, play football for someone who's coming from a marginalized community doesn't take much to get them involved, at least in the very beginning.
Yes. Well, folks, we never pretend that we're going to solve all the things that are going on in the world, all the concerns we see, but we do promise that we will pray about them, because what we know and what we teach is, if there is a human concern, there is a spiritual solution to that concern. Yes. And part of our work is to do as we've been do as I say and as I do. Look at what causes the deeper belief. Mm-hmm. Trace those beliefs back to their roots, and then let's excise those. Let's pray those things away. Let's heal up those old belief systems, right? If black guys don't have, if black guys' ankles aren't strong enough to play hockey, how is it that black guys' ankles are strong enough to run around a track? hockey, you got stuff supporting it. All we have to eliminate all these things from our from that deeper level of thinking, that deeper level within us, so that we can bring forward a world that's working for everyone, where everyone recognizes each other's divinity and everyone is embracing and praising each other's unique divinity. I think we're getting there 1 week at a time, Z.
Yeah,
we shall
yeah.
we shall get there.
And we ask the questions and let ourselves and others wrestle with it in their mind to come to their own logical conclusion if they give an honest assessment of the situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, looks like my co-host has somehow popped off, and now he's popping back in. There he goes.
I was about to say, folks, we're going to get out of here. And I was out of here. So we're going to let you get out of here for this Friday morning. Please do remember, here on the New Thought Media Network, we've got a full day of broadcasting and scheduling for you. Keep on checking back in just about a half an hour. We start with Be Your Own Hero with Sekou Wright. He'll tell you about his hero hoodies at 8 o'clock. 8:15 is morning prayers. 8:30, Rev Melissa with the morning sip. 9 o'clock, Rev Steph with Wake Up Say Thank You. I'll be back at 9:30 with the Heart of Peace meditation. And even in the evening, this afternoon, we've got the New Thought Musicians Showcase. And this evening, the Fireside Chat with Pastor Michael as well. So thank you for being with us. Until next time, peace. Whoops, lost my movie too. There.